Greetings to all listeners. It's been a while. This is King H, the radical Pan-Africanist. I'm back because I want to speak about what is going on in Niger and what is going on in Africa. Niger has successfully had a coup, and now ECOWAS, under the leadership of Nigeria, wants to start a war with Niger in order to reinstate the former president of Niger. And if that is to be successful, that means that ECOWAS will try to expel the coup leaders in Mali as well, and in Guinea and other countries in Africa that have successfully had coups, because we've had 7 coups so far in Africa, and coups are going to happen irrespective of what ECOWAS think, irrespective of what African leaders in other nations think. Coups are going to happen because Africa has been exploited, overexploited, and will continue to be exploited because Western nations depend on the resources of the continent of Africa to enrich themselves. Western nations do not see the humanity of Africa and African people, so they think they can take our resources for their own benefit, which is why they have so many military bases in the continent of Africa. Africans, how many African military bases are in Europe? How many African military bases are in the United States? How many African bases are in China or any part of the world? But if you look at Africa, you have French military bases in Africa. You have British military bases in Africa. You have other countries' military bases in Africa. United States military bases in Africa. How many of those military of African countries are in Europe or any other country? We don't. So which means we are being suppressed by Western nations with the military in our continent. We must get rid of the military out of Africa. If we don't, that is going to be used against us to colonize and neo-colonize and recolonize us. We must do that. Look at the coup that is happening in Niger. Now, ECOWAS wants to expel the coup leaders and put back the Western-backed leaders in Niger. Those leaders who don't have the interests of the people of Niger. They don't have the interests of the people in Mali, in Guinea, in Burkina Faso. So if they successfully reinstate the leadership in Niger, they will try to do the same in Mali, in Burkina Faso, in Guinea, and other places as well. Because Western nations want to dominate the continent of Africa by controlling the resources of Africa. That would enrich their nations and make the people and the continent of Africa poor. And if you notice, they sit by and insult how wretched Africa is. But that's where they make their billions, their trillions. That's where they make their money, by getting the resources at a relatively cheap price from our so-called African leaders who have been put there by Western nations to benefit Western nations. So we need more coups in Africa, more coups in West Africa, more coups in East Africa, more coups in Northern Africa, more coups. We need more coups to happen because our leaders in Africa are not doing the job and don't care about doing the job, but all about enriching themselves in the process, enriching Western nations who have been there after colonization, slavery. Their military bases are there for the interest of their gains, not us. So, as Mali and Guinea and the other coup leaders who have taken power in the country have decided if ECOWAS attack Niger, they will also attack ECOWAS. So Africa will have to fight itself, because neocolonization is there to exploit the continent of Africa to benefit Western nations. This is a start where we must push out all military bases of Western nations out of Africa. We must do it. If we don't do it, then we are slaves to Western nations. Africa should not have military bases of other Western powers or even China in the continent of Africa. Africa is an independent, it should be an independent continent with its own military, controlling the territory of the continent of Africa. We shouldn't have France military in Africa. We shouldn't have British military in Africa. We shouldn't have US military in Africa. We shouldn't have none of those military that are not of Africa in the continent of Africa. I hope that the leaders, the coup leaders of Mali, the coup leaders of Guinea, the coup leaders inspire more leaders in the continent of Africa to take power and create a stronger West Africa. Because if you look at how the president of Nigeria came in power, he did he did a coup through election to become president. And now he wants to fight others who are fighting to reinstate, to make their nation stronger and better for the people of Niger, of the people of Mali, the people of Guinea-Bissau, the people of Africa. We have a war. Western nations are here to exploit. They came, they colonized, they enslaved, and they're still gonna continue with a new type of colonization. We are not free. We are still in the shackles of neo-colonization, and we must get rid of it by making sure all the military bases of European power should be out of Africa. France must go. France must go. British must go. And any other Western power must go. This is King Angel.